everyone, it's Maureen Ryan Blake, and today I have the Power of the Tribes charitable partner, Conservation Beyond Borders, and the founder and director, Dr. Nicole Benjamin-Fink. So at this moment, I would just like to take a chance to say that we would ask for your support in supporting Dr. Benjamin-Fink. We have a charitable event coming up June 24th. The summit is no charge to you. It's called Find Your Voice, Uncover the Book You Were Born to Write. And if you ever wanted to get discovered as a speaker or get in touch with people that'll make you a international bestseller, this is the summit for you. But at this point, the proceeds of your donations go to Dr. Nicole Benjamin-Smith and Conservation Beyond Borders. So I am asking, lean in and give our support. Okay, so here we go. Okay, Nicole, leopards, elephants, rhinos. My goodness. Tell us about how Conservation Beyond Borders began, your passion, and goodness sakes, all your adventures in Africa and India. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this platform. I'm really appreciative. I founded Conservation Beyond Borders out of the belief that conservation really does need to be conducted beyond political borders, and also with the idea to establish a vital network of researchers so we can learn from one another and not need to reinvent the wheel every single time, just kind of tweak it in different regions of the world.
And so with that being said, because one of the many things I love about your organization is that you're, first of all, again, you say you're not reinventing the wheel and you're not putting a Band-Aid on the problem. You're actually creating solutions. Can you lean into that a little bit and tell us exactly what you do and how it's working?
Yeah, of course. So the poaching problem is really a global crisis. You can see the majestic rhino population being wiped out. And whether it's rhinos or elephants, it's really being wiped up in a brutal manner because of the poaching crisis. And the poaching crisis is really being led by the demand for the illegal wildlife trade. And we just can't afford to sit back in our houses anymore and assume that the poaching is only decimating wildlife in a far, far way in Africa or in India. It is really affecting every one of us, no matter where we live. So the unique thing that I do is I create mathematical models that predict extinction rates or poaching rates given different strategies. And we do talk to communities, we talk to decision makers, and we really impact the different strategies that are being used in order to decrease poaching rates in a sustainable and accountable manner.
That's incredible. So, okay, what that looks like then. So traditionally, people will go and try to save these animals. What is your tactic with the poachers, and what are you able to accomplish to make this a sustainable answer?
Right. So we address different levels of the poaching crisis. We do help the animals, and we'll get to that, I'm sure. But we also do help all stakeholders involved, and that includes reaching out to local communities, educating them about the possibility of health risks, as we've seen with COVID. But we've also seen with anthrax and Ebola specific to Africa. So we really do educate people about the health risks, and we offer alternative sustainable livelihoods. The one thing that we do really well is we do not just kind of go into communities, do the workshop, and then leave. We follow up, we create these long-term relationships that are really based on trust.
So I was just about to say that you really gain the trust. And so I would think that as from the start must have been one of the most difficult challenges in this at the beginning point.
Right. And people were very welcoming, but were very skeptical, sorry, about our contribution and how we can help. And we have fostered those relationships throughout the years and really, really made a point for not leaving our communities. So for instance, during this time, especially during COVID, rather than doing the workshops, because we don't want to kind of promote, of course, a big group of people in one room, we have ventured out and we've expanded to include the helpiness and feeding and providing local communities that live close to wildlife with different things that they need. And that's exactly the point. We identified what they need, whether it's food, whether it's health assistance, and we really do address that.
That's amazing. So you actually become the solution and part of the community, not a separate and someone that just comes in and as a stranger.
Right. And local capacity is really important to Conservation Beyond Borders. All of our researchers are really keen on helping people and tackling the poaching crisis in a sustainable manner. So again, it's really not enough to go in and to assume that we know everything. We quantify different variables on an ongoing basis in order to improve and kind of tweak our mechanisms.
So again, so with your philosophy and your approach, whether we're talking about COVID, you saving the animals or actually saving the villages and then saving us all.
We're very happy to report that there has been a steady decrease in poaching, especially because of proactive conservation measures. COVID-19 has resulted in a surge in poaching, and we are addressing that. It does remain a huge problem, especially because tourists are no longer there, because obviously reasons. And so we have less eyes on the ground, but we are addressing it in a sustainable manner and hoping to really, really make a dent in the poaching crisis.
So I have, let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because many people love animals and they have a connection that obviously they'd like to see our earth heal and have a place, but that's where it starts. You beyond followed your voice and passion and created this. So can you tell us what that looked like at the beginning? And you're still married all through this, right?
This is correct. So let me just tell you about, for instance, the first experience that has actually gotten me into this whole combating the illegal wildlife trade and the poaching crisis. So what had happened is I was in South Africa gathering my data for my PhD. We were doing black and blue wildebeest hybridization at the time. And it was about 3 weeks into the field that we were heading home, the team and I, and somebody suggested that, do we want to watch something? We were approaching a beautiful, what I thought at the time was going to be a beautiful sunset. So we drove on Mpumalanga. If you can imagine the golden grass, the sun is setting, and as we're driving, I'm looking up and I'm seeing these huge, big boulders, and I'm thinking that this is going to be an amazing sunset. And as we approach, I realize that these are actually rhinos and not, they're moving, their silhouettes are gorgeous, amazing. They captured my heart. And so I came back and I decided to, really research into the rhinos. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of research to be done about the rhinos. The wildlife poaching crisis was rather under control. I think we saw 13 rhinos poached in 2008. In 2009, following a politician in Vietnam that did announce that rhino horn cured his cancer, which and I will get to it. It's completely misguided. I went back to the field to continue to collect my data, and what I experienced was devastating. The rhinos that I've seen the year prior to that were poached. It is really a hard thing to see these majestic animals brought to their knees by machetes and the slaughter in the most horrific of horrific ways. And all of this is really to gain their horns. And it's a keratin-based horn, which essentially means that the physical impact for us as human beings would be identical to the physical impact of me chewing on my hair or chewing on my nails. So it's really a misguided belief, but it does come out of the traditional Chinese medicine, which does hold that by consuming a powerful animal, one consumes its potency. And this is really a point that needs to be addressed in order to understand that this is incorrect and not true, and scientifically proven that it has no impact on human health.
Okay, so I want to go back to that driving out the sunset, the golden grass, and then these big boulders that wind up being moving rhinos. So first of all, how close have you been face to face, and how big are they?
Oh, they are humongous. They are really big. An adult male is really, I mean, I could not move by myself an adult male. I also can't move an adult female by myself. The really nice thing about these huge prehistoric beings is that they're gentle, and they're so gentle that by simply covering their eyes with a towel or with a piece of cloth, they get very fearful, and they freeze in their path. And so a rhino can be brought down to its knees by just simply covering its eyes. It's really it's astonishing to understand how rhinos can on one side be very vulnerable, and on another side, I know that there's been stories in the media that rhino attack people and cars, but you know, we really shouldn't be in their territory or in their habitat. If the person is wandering in a rhino's habitat, there's something wrong with that picture.
Yeah. Okay, so so obviously you've been face to face.
Right.
Okay, wow. And physically, give us some benchmark, or so you're standing there and you're 5'6", 5'4".
Right. So I will just say that if I do this motion on the forehead of a rhino, and it's this size, so their ears from standing way right up, they relax. And that was astonishing to me, because you really realize that these rhinos have emotions, and they're very emotionally vulnerable. In fact, when a rhino is poached, and if it's a cow and with a calf, it lets out a sigh, and that sigh is designed to let the calf know that danger is near. And unfortunately, the calf runs to its mother. So oftentimes we will lose 2 generations in one poaching attempt. It's really, really sad.
That's so sad. So it cries out for the baby, and then in turn, the baby by instinct goes to find its mother and gets. And so the word poaching, can we call it what it is? They're massacring them. That's what they're doing, right?
Yeah, they're pretty much slaughtering them, and they're slaughtering them with machetes. It's not with machetes, bullets. So they are not really waiting to even kill the animal before they hack off the horn from the faces, which, you know, and sometimes it works to our advantage because we're able to save animals that have been injured by poachers. But just the idea of the inhumane manner in which it's caused, and which kind of brings me back to the idea of consuming an animal in the Eastern traditional medicine. By consuming an animal, you also consume its energy. So even the thought of how that animal was killed, especially in an environment and a climate that we are so clear about the fact that we want free grazing animals and so on and so forth. These animals are being slaughtered.
Okay, so, and it really, so, and I had the pleasure of meeting you during your, it was actually called Save the Rhino. So rhinos were your first love. That was your first drive.
This is true. It's when you are in the presence of a rhino, you feel that something is bigger than you. You feel the connection to the earth. And there's really no way to put it outside of the fact that it becomes a driver for our work.
So now, but that they definitely you work with other animals as well, and you're telling me there's 3 beautiful, and I'm going to let you tell the story, creatures waiting for you to open up South Africa. So what other animals do you work with and come in contact and help save?
Well, for instance, we do have some leopards right now. So the leopards are rather tricky. The leopard will not adhere to any fences, and so it is not uncommon to get to know about leopards that threaten or eat livestock. And as a result, the owner of that livestock suffers an economic loss.
Okay.
And this is exactly a great example because we go in, we explain, we do the workshops, and explain that there's different ways to deal with human-wildlife conflict. So this flash forward resulted in getting a few phone calls saying, come remove these leopards before I shoot them.
Right.
And it was from a number of different landowners, and we gladly went. And now the leopards are waiting to successfully be relocated.
So now are they actually a little, is it they considered a tribe, a family? What is a group of leopards called? The family unit.
Oh, they're very solitary animals, actually. So a pride is in relationship to lions, but leopards are on their own. Leopards are rewriting every single book.
Amazing, amazing. So, okay, so give us the rundown. What have you worked with? All the animals.
So tigers, elephants, recently pangolins, and it's what's really hurtful to me, and it's confusing, actually, I should say, is that we're in the midst of a pandemic that started from illegal wildlife consumption. And so we really do need, as the earth did, took a break and rebreathe and reprioritize where we're heading as a society and what we really value as individuals. And so it's astonishing to understand that during COVID, during the time that these international boundaries and borders have been on lockdown and smuggling routes have been closed, there has been the largest seize of pangolin scales.
Oh, okay. So okay, penguins in Africa and India. Where are the penguins coming from, and what's with the penguins?
So the penguins, there are 8 species of penguins. It's actually the most trafficked mammal in the world. They're really cute creatures. They when they get scared, they roll up, and their defense mechanism is their scales. So I can hold one. It's about this size, coiled up. They carry around their offspring on their back, which is pretty amazing. And they just seem like a creature that you wouldn't pay much attention to on the savannah or in the forest. And yet it has managed to be one of the most trafficked mammals in the world because of the demand for its scales. And again, the scales are keratin based, so it has exactly the same impact as rhino horn or as chewing your nails, which is absolutely zero.
I've not heard of that. I think that's probably not known enough. And first of all, how could you not love penguins? I mean, they're fun, they're mischievous, and doesn't the male also, he takes care of the egg during that time?
Right. So there's pangolins and there's penguins, and what we're working with is pangolins. A lot of that's actually a really common point that you're making. Penguins are really cute, and that you can find them in quite a lot of places. But the pangolins is more of a anteater, huge long tongue that goes and eats termites. And they are this little armor, prehistoric animal that is being brought to its knees because of the idea that, again, that we should consume them, or we have a right to consume them.
And so, okay, so now I'm a little bit clearer here too, because I love penguins too. So, but what we're looking at is then the armor with that, which is their protective mechanism, which also means that they're absolutely slaughtered to separate them from their. So we in a previous interview, which I could be on all day with you. So when you were speaking about the COVID and the wet market, go into that in detail, because we're living this, and living this, it's impacting our lives as well. If it's even as an altruistic something that we're going through, it's affecting us as well.
Yes, completely. So 75% of all human viruses that we have experienced within the past century actually originated in wildlife. And the big scare is that it can really easily happen again. So again, the poaching crisis has left the shores of Africa, has left the shores of India, and is coming to us via the globalization and so on and so forth. So what really happened is that in Wuhan, a wet market, which is it's legal, so that's important to state. It's legal yet unregulated, and here's the difference really. The animals are in close proximity. It's called wet markets because they slaughter animals on site. And
okay,
so
I wanted to know what that meant. Okay, lovely.
Right. So they hose down the blood. And that's where the wet market name comes from. It is associated with fresh food in different cultures, but the problem becomes when it's not regulated. And in Wuhan, the wet market was not regulated. So there was different species, high densities, that also creates stress amongst the animals, so they become more susceptible to different disease outbreaks. And this particular market served as a cover for illegal wildlife trade. And there was a pangolin that was freshly brought in. And when a butcher, killed the pangolin, it's when the assumption is that the blood reached the butcher's eye, and that was patient zero.
I'm glad you enlightened us about what the wet market is. So okay, let's go turn this a different way. So what country is the biggest consumer of these products?
So it is China. Okay. And the second largest middle class sector, which is growing at a huge rate, is Vietnam.
Okay. Okay, is that because the affluency of Vietnam, and finally they're able to afford it, and
right. And so one of the things that I didn't yet touch upon is the practice of the social status. So what happens is that in different locations, it's very acceptable that a complete rhino horn will be brought to the table while businessmen are closing deals, because this is a sign of wealth. Extrapolate that to the pangolin. Also, pangolin is considered a delicatessen dish. So if you want to pamper, and it's expensive, so it is associated with the elite and with the social status. So that is also something that Conservation Beyond Borders is working to diffuse, if you may, and really kind of blow all of the idea that it is a good thing, it's a culturally accepted thing, and kind of decrease its relationship with social status.
Okay, but the going back to this, now when it comes to, again, because you're about solutions,
Right.
so when it comes to the rhino, tell us a little bit about your approach on the rhino and about still satisfying the poachers in a sense, but saving the rhino at the same time.
Right. So, and this is one of our success stories because we do couple it up with a communal pool sharing theory. So, just in a nutshell, we provide workshops to local communities and provide them with the knowledge of alternative livelihoods. So we're trying to create a situation in which any animal, if it's tigers, if it's rhinos, if it's elephants, any animal is more valuable alive than dead.
Okay.
And that's our basis. That's what we're preaching. That's what we're trying to educate. In addition to that, we're linking jobs to live animals. So it's the tourism, it's the rangers, it's the anti-poaching rangers as well. So we're linking jobs to live animals versus dead animals. In addition to that, for instance, with the rhinos, we are removing the incentive to poach. So and of course, most of the rhinos, if not all the rhinos that are being poached, they are being poached because of their horns. And so by safely removing those horns, which again, it's like cutting a person's fingernails, it grows back. We remove the incentive for poachers to come onto that reserve. And we've done this in strategic locations. So we're not deterring poachers from one point to a different point, which is very important to emphasize. We are removing the incentive regionally. So poachers, in fact, do not really have an incentive to go out there and poach. And it has to be redone every 18 months because, again, it's safe and it's like a nail that's growing. You have to recut it.
So with this tactic, were you one of the first to say, hey, wait a second, this is a viable solution?
Right. And then in addition to that, so what we do, again, we do the comprehensive approach. It's really important for us that people get on board because it's not enough to create conservation solutions if nobody knows about it and if nobody's aware about it. So we did create these huge signs on different reserves that do picture and illustrate the fact that the rhinos in these reserves are hornless, are dehorned. And I created a mathematical model that predicts the percentage of the population that needs to be dehorned in order to actually effectively deter poachers from coming onto those reserves. And just the last point, again, that it's really super important that we dehorn all the reserves in a certain area so the poachers do not just go to the neighbor and poach rhinos there.
So when did Conservation Beyond Borders begin? What year?
In 2008.
Okay, and so since then, what type of numbers and regions have you brought about change?
So we do have the numbers, and there's a lot of debate in the literature and among stakeholders. We have the trust of governments, we have the trust of decision makers that collaboratively work with us. And so in South Africa, it's really safe to say that the numbers have decreased, especially since we adopted different strategies. For instance, in 2012, 13, 14, more than 3 rhinos on average were poached per day.
Wow.
And then in 2018, you've seen a dramatic decrease that less than 2 rhinos were poached per day. So that's a big saving point. Okay. And we are up against a surge in poaching, and we are right now tweaking the models in order to understand what we need to do better or enforce.
But now you're also making a difference in communities, children,
Right.
and eating, and what benefits have the communities been able to experience with your work, which is beautiful.
So, for instance, going back to the idea of, this game theory that we employ, but we also employ a communal-based pooling. And what that essentially means is that there's different locations of villages, and the villages are adopted by us. We have a long-term relationship based on trust and goodwill. And so if they need, or when they need to get to the hospitals, if they need medical help, if they need food assistance, and so on and so forth, we are there to provide them with ways in order to achieve that.
So not only are you protecting the animals, you have become a viable support to all of the communities.
Right. And again, we do conservation beyond political borders, beyond human wildlife dimensions. We do really try to tackle conservation issues in a comprehensive manner. And again, if we are living in America and poaching is happening far, far away, as if you want to say it, in Africa, it's not right for us to claim any ownership on wildlife that's there unless we really do help local communities that live in those areas. Because if a person loses his income due to elephants that have destroyed his crop, it's very understandable that that person will seek to destroy the elephants. However, flip side, if that person does have an answer or a place to go to and a group of people that are willing to help and sort it out for that person, so we're more likely to promote conservation on a sustainable manner.
I love that. It's really truly the grassroots.
It is. Yes.
That's brilliant. I mean, okay, so let's do this right now. So again, our event is coming up, and when you register on the thank you page, you get to have the opportunity to donate to Conservation Beyond Borders. And so Nicole, can you give us a little bit of tell people what their donations, what that would do for you?
First of all, I'm very grateful. The donations will go directly to helping wildlife communities, especially in this crisis. So that entails to feed wildlife communities so we can help them, first of all, and also maintain our relationship and goodwill towards conservation. It will also go towards releasing these leopards that we do have right now in bomas so they can get their new habitat. And unfortunately, last night there was another poaching in the North Territory of South Africa. So a cow was killed, and we did manage to save its calf. So it's going to really help feed the calf, rehabilitate the calf, and eventually release it to the wild.
Okay, so but again, it's not just simply that we are tied to our earth. The monies that are donated actually truly go to communities, and within that, the animals and the humans are in these communities together. So it's going to save both.
Right. Yes, it's going to save an entire ecosystem, a fragile ecosystem.
And it's just so brilliant.
I'm very grateful. I'm very humbled, and I'm very grateful for everybody's willingness. And I hope that people have taken the time during COVID, and I know it's been very hectic health-wise, and there's a lot of economic hardship. But I do hope that we can all emerge stronger from this and with values that are reprioritized somehow, that put the environment and the earth and the endangered species on the top 5 of that list.
And then also these villages where there's communities that get the support as well. It's not an and or, it's both.
Right.
So with all of the amazing beings on the planet, what animal are you still longing to meet?
I have had the privilege to work with so many animals, and I'm truly humbled. Tigers, the first tiger that I saw took my breath away. And the rhinos, they're very close to my heart. And I think that if people can just understand that poaching is all of our responsibility to combat, and the majestic wildlife is our children's heritage.
And your approach is it takes a community to save all of us.
It takes a community to save all of us. This is true.
That's brilliant. Okay, so the three leopards, what's the update, and when are you getting on a plane?
So they're doing well. As soon as South Africa has opened its travel cross provinces, so they will be released, and I'm really looking forward to that. I'm super excited. And again, they're doing well. We are feeding them with live chickens, so we're not hand feeding them. They still have to work for their prey, and an important part of that is we're really cautious about not to domesticate them throughout the rescue process.
Okay. All right, so let's just one more time here. So the event is called Find Your Voice, Uncover the Book You Were Born to Write. It has 4 amazing international bestsellers. In addition, you get the opportunity to come face to face with a multimedia mogul who has a program about finding the next great speaker, in addition to bringing your book to international bestseller status. So you get to get discovered. And on the registration page, when you register on the thank you page, again, the event is complimentary. There is no fee. It's free to everyone. But on the registration page, when you get to the thank you, there is a place to donate, and you'll be seeing Nicole and I there. And we save the animals, we save us, and then we save communities and lifestyles that are a part of our heritage. And we get to do this together. Nicole. Great. So will you share, and by the way, Nicole's one of our Power of the Tribe women who, again, followed her voice, and it had her voice be the driving force behind her life. Will you share pictures?
Yes, of course.
Okay. All right, good, everyone.
Pictures.
I'd love to send, because you can send them on our Facebook page, and keep us updated. And okay, good. And best wishes, stay safe, and we'll be rooting for the communities, for the rhinos, the leopards, tigers, and bears. Oh my! And thank you for coming on. And again, donate and save us, and save for Conservation Beyond Borders. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.